The sun was sinking low when the human traveler reached the edge of the ruined village. His boots crunched on broken stones and his shadow stretched long across the ground. The air was heavy with the smell of smoke and dust. Silence hung over the place, but it was not a peaceful silence. It was the silence after pain, after fear, after death. He stopped and looked around. The huts were burned, their walls half collapsed. The doors were broken. Charred wood lay scattered like bones. He felt the hair on his neck rise. Something terrible had happened here. The man tightened the strap of his pack. He had been walking for days across this strange planet, hoping to find shelter or food. But this place looked like the end of hope. Still, he walked deeper into the ruins. Something inside told him not to turn back. A faint sound reached his ears. At first he thought it was the wind. But no, the wind did not sound like that. It was a soft, trembling voice. He froze, holding his breath, listening. Please, don't hurt us. The human's eyes widened. Someone was alive. He followed the voice, stepping carefully over broken beams and cracked stone. His heart beat faster with each step. He expected to find a wounded man, maybe an old survivor. But what he found made him stop in shock. From behind the corner of a half-destroyed hut, a small figure appeared. It was a child, an alien child. She was thin, her skin pale blue and glowing faintly in the fading light. Her big dark eyes shimmered with tears. Her clothes were torn and dust covered her small hands. The girl stared at him, her body trembling like a leaf in the wind. Then in a voice that broke his heart, she asked, "Are you here to harm our mom as well?"
She's dying.
The human felt the world freeze around him. Those words cut deep. He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. He could see the fear in her eyes, the kind of fear no child should ever have. Slowly he raised his hands, showing they were empty. "I am not here to hurt you," he said softly. "I will not harm your mother." The girl's eyes narrowed. She did not fully believe him, but she did not run either. She stood there, breathing fast, clutching something hidden in her hand. "Others came before," she whispered. "They said they wanted peace, but they brought fire. They hurt her. They hurt everyone." The human looked around again. Yes, this place was not destroyed by accident. He saw blast marks on the walls, black scars of weapons. Whoever attacked had done it with purpose. His chest tightened. He felt anger rising, but he forced himself to stay calm. He bent one knee, lowering himself to the girl's level. "I am sorry," he said. "I was not with them. I travel alone, please. Take me to your mother." "Maybe I can help." The girl's lips trembled. For a long moment, she did not move. Then, as if some small part of her wanted to believe, she turned and pointed toward a broken shelter nearby. "She is inside," the girl said, "but she is very weak." The man followed her, careful not to make sudden moves. Every step felt heavy with responsibility. He was no doctor, no healer, but he could not walk away. The shelter was dark inside. Only a thin beam of light slipped through the cracks in the roof. The air smelled of blood and ash. On a rough bed of cloth and stone lay the girl's mother. She was much larger than the child, her body strong once, but now broken. Her blue skin was scarred and burned. Her breathing was shallow, her chest rising and falling with great effort. The girl rushed to her mother's side and held her hand tightly. "Mom, I brought someone. He says he will not hurt us." The human stepped closer. His heart ached at the sight. He had seen death before, but this was worse. This was cruelty. He knelt beside the alien mother, pulling out a small flask of water from his pack. Gently, he touched her lips with it. A drop slid into her mouth. She coughed weakly, then swallowed. The girl's eyes lit up with hope. The mother opened her eyes for a brief second. They were clouded with pain, but still sharp enough to see him. She whispered something, her voice barely a breath. "Human." "Why?" He shook his head. "I am only here to help." Her eyes closed again, and she fell back into weak sleep. The girl looked at him, tears rolling down her cheeks. "If you are lying, she will die. If you are true, please save her." The human felt the weight of those words press down on him. He looked at the broken walls, the burned homes, the ruined village. Whoever had done this might still be near. His journey had brought him here for a reason. He could feel it. And for the first time in a long while he was afraid, because he knew this was only the beginning. The human sat in silence, his hand resting near the alien mother's side. Her breathing was slow, uneven, as if each breath might be her last. The small alien girl knelt close to her mother, refusing to let go of her hand. The flickering light from the broken roof made shadows crawl across the walls. The human could not stop staring at the wounds. Burn marks stretched across her arms, deep cuts ran along her chest, and strange glowing scars spread like veins of fire. These were not normal injuries. They were made by weapons, sharp, cruel, and merciless. He reached into his pack again. All he had were bandages, some herbs, and a little water. It was not enough, he knew it. But he could not sit and do nothing. The girl's eyes followed his every move. She did not trust him fully, but she wanted to. He could feel her fear and her hope fighting inside her. "Can you save her?" she whispered, her voice trembling. The man looked at her, then at the mother. He swallowed hard. "I will try." Carefully, he cleaned the wounds with water. The mother stirred weakly, her eyes fluttering open for just a moment. She looked at him, her lips moving. "Why do you help us?" she whispered. The human paused. It was a question he had no simple answer for. Maybe it was pity. Maybe it was anger at whoever had done this. Maybe it was something deeper, a sense that fate had pulled him here. "Because no one deserves this," he said softly. "Not you, not her, not anyone." Her eyes softened for a moment before closing again. She let out a weak sigh. The girl's grip tightened on her mother's hand. "Please don't let her die. She is all I have." The human's chest ached. He had lost people before. He knew that pain. He did not want this child to feel it too. He tore cloth into strips and wrapped the wounds as best as he could. He crushed the herbs and pressed them into the burns. It was rough work, but at least it slowed the bleeding. For a while, the only sound was the girl's quiet sobbing and the crackle of broken wood in the distance. The village was still, but the air outside carried a strange heaviness. The human kept glancing at the door, half expecting shadows to appear. The girl spoke suddenly, her voice sharp with fear. "They will come back." The man looked at her. "Who?" She shivered, hugging herself. "The soldiers. The ones with fire. They killed everyone. They said my mother is a traitor. They said she must die." The human froze. Soldiers. That meant this was not just random violence. This was planned, organized. Someone had ordered this. Why would they call her a traitor? He asked carefully. The girl's eyes filled with tears again. She shook her head. "I don't know. She tried to keep us safe. She told them she wanted peace. But they didn't listen. They burned everything." Her small body shook as the memory came back. The human clenched his fists. He had seen war before, but this was different. To burn a village, to hunt a mother and her child, what kind of enemy did that? The mother stirred again. Her hand lifted weakly, trembling in the air until it touched his arm. Her voice was faint but clear enough. "Protect my daughter," she whispered. The human felt the weight of those words fall on him like iron chains. He looked at the girl, her big eyes staring at him with desperation, and he knew he could not turn away. "I promise," he said firmly. "No harm will come to her while I still breathe." The girl blinked at him, silent for a long moment. Then she nodded, a small flicker of trust in her eyes. But before any comfort could settle, the man heard something. A sound outside. Faint footsteps. He froze, his ears straining. The girl noticed too. Her eyes went wide and she pressed her hand to her mouth to stop a cry. The footsteps were slow, deliberate. Whoever it was, they were not trying to hide. They wanted to be heard. The human reached for the small blade at his side. He did not have much, but it was better than nothing. His heart pounded. The mother opened her eyes again, her voice rasping. "They are here." The girl clung to her mother, terrified. No, not again," she whispered. The human stood, moving quietly to the doorway. His body was tense, ready for whatever was coming. He looked out into the fading light. Shapes moved among the ruins. Dark figures in armor. Their helmets glowed faintly, and weapons gleamed in their hands. The soldiers had returned. The human's breath caught in his throat. He turned back to the girl and her mother. "Stay quiet. Stay low," he whispered. The girl nodded, tears running down her face. The human gripped his blade tighter. The promise he had made was already being tested, and he knew this night was only going to grow darker. The night had fallen heavy over the ruins. The human crouched inside the broken shelter, his blade tight in his hand. The alien girl sat close to her mother, holding her limp arm, trying not to sob too loudly. Every small sound seemed like thunder in the silence. Outside, the crunch of boots echoed on stone. The soldiers were searching. Their glowing visors lit the darkness like cold eyes. The human's heart pounded, but his mind was sharp. He had made a promise. The mother's faint voice still echoed in his head. Protect my daughter. He could not break that vow. The mother stirred, her weak breaths rattling. She turned her head slightly, her eyes glimmering faintly in the shadows. She whispered something the human had to lean close to hear. They will not stop until she is gone, she said. Her voice was broken, but each word carried truth. They want what I carry. If I fall, promise. Keep her safe, even if it costs you. The human swallowed hard. He had already promised, but now it felt different. He understood this was not just about survival. This was about something bigger, something dangerous. He nodded, his voice low but steady. I promise. The alien girl looked at him, her big eyes wide with fear and hope. She had no words, but the way she clung tighter to her mother's hand told him everything. She was depending on him now. Outside, the voices of the soldiers grew clearer. Search every shelter, one barked. The traitor's child must not live. Another laughed coldly. Easy work. Burn what's left. Nothing survives. The human's jaw tightened. Rage rose in him, but he forced it down. Rage would not save them. Careful steps would. He moved silently to the doorway and peered out. 3 soldiers stood nearby, scanning the ruins with their glowing weapons. More shadows moved farther back. Too many to fight head-on. He turned back to the girl. We must move quietly, her eyes filled with terror. But Mom, she cannot walk, the human said firmly, but his tone was gentle. We carry her or we lose her. Do you understand? The girl nodded weakly, brushing her tears away with a trembling hand. The human bent down, sliding his arms carefully under the mother's body. She was heavier than she looked, her form tall and strong even in weakness. He grunted softly but lifted her onto his back. The girl followed, her small steps careful. Every sound outside felt closer now. The soldiers' lights swept across walls and broken beams. One wrong move and they would be caught. The human led them through the back of the shelter where a hole gaped in the wall. The girl squeezed through first. Then he followed with the mother's weight pressing down on him. They entered a narrow alley between ruined huts. The air was thick with smoke and dust. The girl reached for his arm, guiding him. This way. There is an old tunnel under the well, the human nodded. If the tunnel still existed, it could hide them. But the soldiers were not far. One of them shouted suddenly, Tracks! Someone moved through here. The girl gasped and the human pushed her gently ahead. Run. Quietly, but run. They slipped through the alley, the sound of armored boots behind them. The human's breath grew heavy under the weight of the mother, but he did not slow down. The well appeared ahead, half collapsed but still standing. The girl rushed to it, pulling aside broken stones to reveal a dark hole. Here, she whispered. The human lowered the mother carefully into the hole. The girl climbed in next, her small hands reaching up for him, but before he could follow, a beam of light struck across the alley. A soldier's voice rang out, There! Stop them! The human gritted his teeth. He could not let them see the girl. Without hesitation, he dropped into the tunnel, pulling a slab of stone over the opening just as the soldiers reached the well. Darkness swallowed them. The tunnel was damp, the air stale. The girl clung to his arm, whispering, They will find us. The human knelt, adjusting the mother's body against the wall. He placed a finger to his lips. Not if we stay silent. Above them, heavy boots thudded. The soldiers' voices echoed. Tracks end here. They must be below. Search the ground. Tear it open if you must. The girl pressed her face into her hands, trembling. The human wrapped one arm around her, shielding her. His other hand gripped the blade tighter. The seconds stretched into eternity. Dust fell from the ceiling as the soldiers stomped above. Then the mother spoke again, her voice faint but urgent. The artifact? It must not fall into their hands. The human blinked in the dark. Artifact? Her trembling hand reached into her torn clothing. She pulled out a small object, glowing faintly with strange light. She pressed it into his palm. Keep it safe, she whispered. For her future? For all of us. The human felt a shiver run through him. He did not know what the object was, but he knew one thing. It was the reason this family was being hunted. He closed his hand around it. His promise had just become far more dangerous, and outside the soldiers were not leaving. The tunnel was cold and damp, but the air above was alive with danger. Boots struck against stone, voices barked orders, and beams of light swept across the ruined village. The human stayed crouched in the shadows of the tunnel, his arm protectively around the alien girl, while the mother lay weak and pale against the wall. For a moment, the silence inside was thick enough to choke. Then came the sound that froze them all, the scrape of metal on stone. Soldiers were prying at the well, trying to break through. The girl's eyes widened in terror. "They know we're here," she whispered. The human pressed a finger to her lips, but inside his chest his heart hammered like a drum. He glanced at the mother, who seemed barely awake, yet her eyes glowed faintly in the dark. "They will not stop," she whispered. Her voice was broken but steady. "They were sent to finish us, to erase us." The girl buried her face in her hands. "Why? Why do they hate us?" The mother's gaze shifted toward the human. "Because of what I carry. Because I did not bow to them." The human clenched the strange artifact still hidden in his hand. Its faint glow pulsed like a heartbeat. He did not understand it yet, but he knew it was important. Dangerous, even. Above them, a soldier shouted, "Bring the cutters! We'll tear the stone apart." The human's mind raced. They had only moments before the tunnel was exposed. He leaned close to the girl. "We can't stay here. We must move deeper." The girl nodded quickly, though her small hands shook. She helped guide him into the darkness, her bare feet silent on the stone. The tunnel narrowed, forcing him to bend low as he carried the mother across his back. Behind them, the cracking of stone echoed, proof that the soldiers were breaking through. The deeper they went, the colder it grew. Drops of water fell from the ceiling. The girl whispered, "There is another way out far ahead. My father used it long ago, before he was gone." The human said nothing, but his jaw tightened. He had no choice but to trust her. As they moved, the mother stirred again. Her weak voice carried a warning. "These are not just soldiers. They are hunters, trained to kill in silence. They will follow until one of us is dead." The human felt the weight of her words, hunters. That meant they would not give up no matter how far he ran. Suddenly a crash echoed behind them. Light spilled into the tunnel. The soldiers had broken through the well. "Down here," one shouted. "After them." The girl gasped, and the human tightened his grip on her shoulder. "Run!" They moved faster, their steps splashing through shallow water. The human's muscles burned under the mother's weight, but he refused to slow. The tunnel twisted and turned, the darkness broken only by the faint glow of the artifact in his hand. Behind them, the hunter's footsteps thundered closer. The girl looked back and whispered, "They're coming so fast." The human gritted his teeth. "Don't look back. Keep moving." Then ahead of them, the tunnel opened into a wider chamber. Broken pillars stood in the shadows, carved with strange alien markings. The girl slowed for a moment, her eyes wide. "This place? It is sacred. My people prayed here." The human had no time for wonder. He scanned the walls, searching for another passage. Yes, there, a narrow crack leading further down. But before they could move, the hunters arrived at the edge of the chamber. Their glowing visors cut through the dark like knives. "End of the line," one growled. The girl screamed, clinging to the human. The mother tried to rise, but her body betrayed her, leaving her to collapse back into his arms. The human stepped forward, blade raised, though he knew he could not defeat them all. Still, he would not give up. He would not break his promise. The lead soldier's voice dripped with cruelty. "Hand over the traitor's child, human. Walk away alive. That's the only mercy you'll get." The human's blood boiled. He shouted back, "She is under my protection." "You'll have to kill me first." The soldier laughed, a cold metallic sound. "Then so be it." They raised their weapons. The girl's voice cracked in fear. "Please don't let them take me." The human gripped his blade tighter, planting his feet. His body trembled, not from fear but from fury. He had faced death before, but never for something this important. Then, just as the soldiers advanced, the artifact in his hand pulsed stronger. Its glow filled the chamber with strange light, casting shadows across the walls. The markings on the pillars flared to life, glowing the same color. The soldiers paused, taken off guard. "What is this?" one muttered. The mother's weak voice cut through the chamber. "It is our legacy, and you will not take it." The human felt the power hum through his hand, through his arm, through his very bones. He did not understand it, but he knew one thing: it had just changed the fight. The hunters were no longer dealing with a weak alien family and a lone traveler. They were facing something greater. The glow of the artifact filled the underground chamber, casting ghostly light on the broken pillars. Strange symbols on the walls shimmered, alive with energy. The human stood frozen for a breath, his blade still raised. He could feel the artifact's power thrum in his palm like a heartbeat, steady and strong. The soldiers hesitated, their weapons lowered for the first time. Even through their masks, he could sense their unease. "What is that?" one of them growled. The mother's weak voice echoed, heavy with truth. "It is the reason you were sent, but it will not be yours." The soldiers snapped out of their hesitation. One shouted, "Seize it! Kill the human! Bring the child!" In a flash, weapons were raised again. Beams of energy cut across the chamber, striking stone and sending sparks flying. The human ducked, pulling the girl close and shielding her with his arm. The mother let out a weak cry as another blast shook the ground. He had no choice. He had to move. "Run!" he shouted. The girl sprinted ahead toward the narrow crack in the chamber wall. The human followed, carrying the mother across his back and gripping the artifact tight in one hand. His lungs burned, his muscles screamed, but he pushed harder. Behind him, the soldiers fired again, their blasts lighting the dark like lightning. The tunnel beyond the crack was tight, barely wide enough to squeeze through. Rocks scraped against his shoulders as he shoved himself inside. The girl crawled quickly ahead, her small body slipping through with ease. Shouts echoed behind them. "Don't let them escape." The human forced himself deeper, each step pulling him away from open space and into suffocating dark. The soldiers were close, too close. He could hear the clang of their armor scraping against stone as they forced themselves into the same narrow path. The girl whispered urgently, "There's another way out." "It leads back to the ruins above." The human nodded, though he doubted they would ever reach it alive. The tunnel twisted sharply, and for a brief moment silence fell. Only their heavy breaths filled the air. But the silence broke as one of the soldiers fired blindly into the tunnel. The blast tore into the stone, sending dust and shards raining down. The tunnel groaned, threatening to collapse. The girl screamed, covering her head. The human threw his body over hers, shielding her from the falling debris. The mother moaned in pain, her breath shallow. "Keep moving," the human urged. They stumbled forward again, faster this time. Then suddenly the tunnel opened into daylight. They burst out onto the surface, into the shattered ruins of the village. The air was cold, filled with smoke and the scent of death. The ruins stretched like a graveyard, burned huts and broken walls everywhere. But here at least there was space to move. The girl pointed frantically. "This way." Toward the cliff. The human followed her finger. In the distance, jagged cliffs rose high with caves carved into their sides. A perfect place to hide if they could reach it. But the hunters poured out of the tunnel behind them. Their glowing visors locked onto the fleeing trio. "There," a soldier roared. Beams of energy ripped through the air, striking rubble around them. The ground exploded in bursts of dirt and fire. The girl shrieked and clung to the human's arm. He ran harder, his legs heavy but unyielding. Every step felt like a battle, the weight of the mother pressing down on his back. But he refused to stop. The cliffs drew closer, but so did the hunters. Their boots slammed against the earth, their voices full of cruel triumph. "You cannot run, human," one shouted. "You carry her death with you." The human ignored them, his eyes fixed on the caves ahead. Then something strange happened. The artifact in his hand pulsed again, brighter this time. The ground beneath him trembled. The burned ruins around them groaned and shifted. Suddenly, one of the fallen walls collapsed, crashing down between the hunters and their prey. Dust filled the air, blocking vision. The girl gasped. Did you do that?" The human shook his head, gripping the artifact tighter. "I don't know." But inside, a thought grew. Maybe the artifact was protecting them. Maybe it had chosen them. They pushed forward, climbing over rocks toward the cliffside. But the hunters were relentless. Two of them leapt over the fallen wall, closing the distance fast. The human spun, slashing his blade as one lunged. Sparks flew as metal met metal. The soldier snarled, swinging his weapon in a brutal arc. The human ducked, driving his blade upward into the gap under the soldier's arm. The armored figure let out a strangled cry and fell. The second soldier raised his rifle, but before he could fire, the artifact pulsed again. A shockwave rippled outward, knocking the soldier backward into the rubble. The girl stared wide-eyed at the glowing object. "It saved us." The mother's weak voice broke through. "It responds. To will, to heart. Use it, human. Use it well." The human felt the truth in her words. The artifact was not just a relic. It was a weapon, or perhaps something greater. But right now it was their only chance. "Go," he shouted. Together they scrambled the last stretch, reaching the shadow of the cliffs. The caves yawned open like dark mouths, offering escape. But as they disappeared inside, the hunters' voices echoed behind them. "This is not the end, human. We will hunt you to the stars if we must." The human did not answer. He only tightened his grip on the artifact and pressed forward into the darkness. For now they had survived, but the true chase had only begun. The caves swallowed them in darkness. The human led the way, his free hand brushing the damp stone walls as he guided the girl and her mother deeper inside. Behind them, the ruins were silent again, but silence did not mean safety. The hunters were still out there, and their promise to chase them to the stars lingered like poison in the air. The girl's breathing was quick and uneven as she clung to his arm. The mother's weight pressed heavily on his back, every step harder than the last. The human could feel her weakness. Her breaths were shallow, her body trembling with every small movement. Finally, he set her down gently on a flat stone ledge inside the cave. The girl immediately knelt beside her mother, clutching her hand tightly. The faint glow of the artifact lit the cave, casting soft light on their faces. The mother's eyes opened slowly, glowing faintly in the dark. She looked at the human with a mixture of pain and determination. "You carry it now," she whispered, her voice rasping. "The artifact, it chose you." The human frowned, looking down at the glowing object in his palm. It pulsed like a living thing, sending warmth through his arm. "What is it?" he asked. "Why are they willing to kill you for this?" The mother's gaze drifted to her daughter. She reached out a trembling hand, brushing the girl's hair. "This is no weapon of war, though they think it is. It is a key to knowledge, to power. My people have guarded it for centuries, but when I refused to give it up, they called me traitor. They burned my home, killed my kin." Her words hung heavy in the air. The girl's lips trembled, but she stayed quiet, tears sliding down her cheeks. The human's jaw tightened. He had suspected the artifact was important, but now he understood. It was far more dangerous than he imagined. A key that could change the galaxy. No wonder soldiers hunted them, he asked quietly. "Why give it to me?" "I am not one of you." The mother's eyes locked onto his. "Because you were not meant to be here. Yet here you are. You did not harm us when you could have. You protected my child. The artifact feels the heart of its bearer, and it has answered to you." The human looked at the artifact again. The light pulsed stronger, as if agreeing with her words. His stomach twisted. He was only a traveler, a wanderer with no place to call home. And now fate had thrust this weight onto him. The girl's small voice broke the silence. "Does that mean he is our guardian now?" The mother smiled faintly, though pain flickered across her face. "Yes, my little star. He is the one I prayed for." The human felt the weight of her words settle heavy on his shoulders. Guardian, protector. He had made a promise, but now it was more than that. It was destiny. But before he could speak, the ground trembled slightly. Dust fell from the ceiling of the cave. The girl gasped and clutched his arm. "They're coming," she whispered. The human stiffened, listening. Yes, faint echoes of boots and voices carried into the cave. The hunters had found the trail. He turned to the mother. "You cannot move fast in this state. We must decide, fight or hide." The mother coughed weakly, then placed her hand on his. "There is another way. Deeper inside these caves lies a hidden chamber. It holds the truth of the artifact. If you reach it, you will understand. But it is dangerous. Few who enter return." The human's brow furrowed. "Why send me there now?" "Because the artifact must awaken," she said, her voice firm despite her weakness. "If it does not, they will destroy us all." The girl's eyes widened. "Mother, no. You cannot go deeper. You are too weak," the mother smiled sadly. "I may not live to see the end. But you must." "And he must." The human clenched his fists. He hated the idea of risking the child in unknown danger. But what choice did he have? If they stayed, the hunters would kill them. If they ran, they would be hunted forever. Only by unlocking the artifact's secret could they hope to survive. The voices grew louder. The glow of soldier visors flickered at the cave's edge. The human stood tall, gripping the artifact in one hand and his blade in the other. "Show me the way," he told the mother. She nodded weakly, pointing to a dark tunnel that led deeper into the earth. "Follow that path. The chamber will call to the artifact." The human bent down, lifting her once more onto his back. The girl ran beside him, her eyes full of both fear and determination. As they entered the deeper tunnel, the artifact glowed brighter, guiding the way like a star. Behind them, the hunters shouted, their boots pounding closer. The chase was not over. But now the human carried not just a promise, but the key to a secret older than empires. And the cave itself seemed to whisper around them, as if waiting for the artifact to reveal its truth. The deeper they went into the caves, the brighter the artifact glowed. Its light painted the walls with shifting patterns as if the stone itself was alive. The human carried the mother on his back, his steps heavy but determined. The girl stayed close at his side, her small hand gripping his sleeve tightly. Behind them, the hunters' voices echoed like thunder. They were relentless, their boots pounding closer, their weapons ready to spill more blood. The tunnel finally opened into a vast chamber. The ceiling soared high above, carved with ancient markings that pulsed in rhythm with the artifact. Pillars stood tall, cracked by age, but still holding an air of sacred power. In the center was a stone platform glowing faintly, waiting. The artifact in the human's hand pulsed harder, as if calling to it. The mother stirred weakly. This is the place, the chamber of awakening. The girl looked around with wide, frightened eyes. It feels alive. The human set the mother down gently against a stone. He stepped toward the platform, his blade still in one hand, the artifact in the other. His heart pounded. He did not know what would happen, but he knew he was standing on the edge of something far greater than himself. Then, the hunters arrived. Dark figures spilled into the chamber, their glowing visors cutting through the dark. Their leader stepped forward, tall and cruel, his weapon raised. His voice echoed with authority. Human, hand over the artifact and you may live. Refuse and you die with them. The human tightened his grip, his jaw set. You'll have to kill me first, the leader sneered. That can be arranged. The hunters fanned out, surrounding them. The girl clung to her mother, her eyes full of terror. The mother raised her head weakly, her voice low but firm. Do not let them take it. No matter the cost. The human stood before the platform, his mind racing. He could fight, but he was outnumbered. He could run, but there was nowhere left to go. The only path was the artifact itself. He placed it on the glowing stone. The chamber roared to life. Symbols on the walls flared, the ground trembled, and light burst upward in a column that touched the ceiling. The hunters staggered back, shielding their eyes. The human felt power rush through him, filling his veins with fire and light. Visions flashed in his mind. Galaxies spinning, wars fought, civilizations rising and falling. The artifact was more than a key. It was memory. It was knowledge. It was the voice of those who came before. Choose. The voice whispered inside his mind. Destroy or protect, silence or truth. What is your heart? He gasped, gripping the edge of the platform. His choice would decide not only his fate, but the girls, the mothers, perhaps even entire worlds. The hunters regained their footing. Their leader snarled and charged forward. Take it now! The human raised his blade, but it was no longer just steel. It shimmered with light from the artifact, burning with energy. When the first hunter struck, the human moved faster than ever before, his blade cutting through armor as if it were paper. The chamber shook with battle. Sparks flew, light blazed, and the human fought with the strength of something greater than himself. The artifact guided him, shielding him from blasts, striking down enemies with arcs of energy. But for every soldier he cut down, more pressed forward. The leader forced through the chaos, his weapon aimed at the girl. No, the human roared. He threw himself between them, blocking the strike. The artifact pulsed in his chest, sending a shockwave that hurled the leader backward. Silence fell. The hunters lay broken or retreating, fear finally cracking their resolve. The leader, burned and beaten, glared at the human. This is not over. Others will come. You cannot protect them forever. Then he vanished into the shadows, leaving the chamber trembling with his threat. The human stood gasping, his body weak but still alive. He turned to the mother and the girl. The artifact still glowed, but softer now, as if waiting. The voice in his head returned. One final choice. Hide me once more and live in silence, or reveal me and change everything. He looked at the girl. Her eyes were wide with hope and fear. He looked at the mother, whose strength was fading fast. He whispered, I cannot let silence win. If truth brings danger, then so be it. The artifact pulsed once more, brighter than ever. The chamber's light burst outward, rising through cracks in the cave, reaching the skies above. For a moment, the ruined village was bathed in pure light, a beacon calling across the stars. The girl clung to him, her small voice trembling. What happens now? The human looked down at her, his face set but calm. Now, they will come, friends or enemies. But whatever happens, I will protect you. The mother gave a faint smile, her hand resting on her daughter's. You chose well. Guardian. Her eyes closed, her breathing soft but peaceful. The chamber grew quiet again, the artifact dimming in his hand. The hunters had fled, but the future was uncertain. The human lifted the girl into his arms, standing tall in the glow of the fading light. He had come here as a wanderer. Now he walked out as protector, carrying both a child and a secret that could shake the galaxy. And far above, among the stars, unseen eyes turned toward the light. The real story was only beginning.